All right, we're going to get started here with our call. I'm really excited about this topic that we're going to be covering, which is we've kind of called it profitability, but I think it's going to cover a lot of different facets. But without further ado, I want to introduce my guest that's going to be essentially speaking, educating us, and hopefully getting people excited about their job as an affiliate owner. We've got Andy Bolliger. He is the owner of CrossFit Salem and CrossFit West Salem in Salem, Oregon. He's been an affiliate owner for nearly 15 years now and is someone that I would say is like self-described as excited about the business aspects of owning an affiliate, which is maybe not every affiliate owner, and that's okay. But what we got to talk about a bit, maybe it was a week or two ago now, was really how to help those affiliate owners that don't feel like this is their strong suit to really create a business out of what may have eventually or may have started as a hobby, and to really get them in a place where they enjoy going to work every day. And it's for many, it might feel like that's really far away. And what I really enjoyed about hearing from you was that you had some actionable steps and new ways of looking at things that maybe many of us we're not really framing our job maybe in the way that we could be to really help us be successful. So without further ado, I'm going to kind of, tee you up here. And one of the first things we talked about was really as owners, as business owners, and specifically in the space of CrossFit affiliate owners, do we realize our own value and what we're worth?
Exactly. Thank you, Katie. And just to also, before we jump into that, I just want to say that everything we talk about, these are just my experience and my opinions on things. And I know that there's a lot of different ways to own a business. And these are the things that have worked for me. And so I just want to make sure everybody know that I'm still learning. I don't have all the answers. And I'm always open to hearing of other ideas as well. But I'll share kind of my experience and to your topic there, knowing our value, that was something that I didn't understand in the beginning. You know, a long time ago, I did CrossFit because I enjoyed it. It made me healthier. And then I turned it into a business. And I love the idea of making other people healthier as well and the journey. But I didn't always appreciate how valuable this service was to the community. And I think you and I have talked about that. Knowing our worth is a really important step, and understanding that I think we stand alone in the fitness and health industry with what we do. We might think we have other competitors out there, but I still, after 15 years, don't see any other businesses doing what we do with the relationship that we have with people, making them healthier physically, mentally. I don't think we have any competition in that area, any strong competition. And so I think our service is incredibly valuable. Um, and and without us doing this, there was a hole in the market for people to change their life with fitness. So yeah, that's the first step. And I'm going to actually refer to some of my notes too. If you see me
Yeah,
looking down, that's what I'm doing.
of course.
But I think our value to the community, first and foremost, is just being here, being available for someone to walk in the door. And that's why I'm passionate about business, because if I don't run my business well and my doors close someday, then I'm not here and I'm not providing this service. So for me, step one is to know I'm valuable, and then try to stay open and provide a great service for people to be able to come in and change their life. And speaking of changing their life, I think any affiliate owner watching this could immediately think of 5 people off the top of their head who have said, "You've changed my life," or "My life has changed because of CrossFit." And we don't need any more evidence than that it's actually happening, right? And I think sometimes as gym owners, we can also think of 5 people off the top of our head who said, "CrossFit's not for me and I'm going to quit." Right. And so we let that bring us down and maybe erase those first 5 people, which it shouldn't. We are changing lives. And I didn't tell you this, but I actually was on a call with a lady yesterday. And I don't know if other affiliate owners have had this happen, but, candidly, she said she was considering ending her life. Like, I didn't know that she was in bad shape mentally, but a month ago, before she found CrossFit, she was really in a bad place, and I was kind of having a hard day also. We were kind of sharing, and she said, well, what you do, I feel like has literally saved my life. And I was blown away, because we don't often hear that. People don't always open up in that way. But it was pretty touching to realize that, because I just think, hey, you came in, you did some workouts, had a high five, we're doing great. But it meant a lot more to her.
Yeah.
And I've communicated that I believe in her and that she's going to reach her goals. And maybe she just hadn't heard that in a long time. But anyway, so if you're not hearing that from your clients or your people, it's there. It's probably there.
Yeah.
That we have impacted them in really big ways. And that was great to hear. That we changed someone's outlook.
This is powerful stuff. And I think you
It
put it in
is.
a great way that if we can't keep our business sustainable, our doors close and we're not helping anyone at that point. So I think a lot of times gym owners will get trapped in that cycle of like, oh, well, I have to help. I have to help. And so they're willing to bend or maybe hurt as a business in order to help. Right. And in doing that, they may end up inevitably having to shut their doors because they weren't thinking about how to be a successful business first and foremost. There's this feeling of like, I have to help first and
Right.
not take care of me or myself and my
Right.
business.
Exactly, and that's the next thing to talk about. Really, is that I'm probably what would be considered old school, and I know that newer owners might have already reached these conclusions, but it took me a while. I was an owner for a lot of years before I stopped thinking of my gym as a nonprofit. And when I first started, I was working a regular job. I didn't do it for the money. I didn't do it even as a side hustle. I just did it because I loved CrossFit, and it got me in shape. Right. And so I was in all the decisions about owning a business. I wasn't thinking about profitability and 401ks and even affording a facility because I was doing it in my garage. And there was no other, companies to benchmark off of. So I just pulled the rates out of thin air. I didn't try to say, what is it going to cost me to run this business and what's my profit margin going to be? If you started like that, like I did, you can't still be that way. In 2023, we need to look at all those business metrics and make smart decisions so we can be here for the next 10, 15 years. Yeah, so digging into that, there was this sense back in the day that CrossFit gyms acted like a nonprofit. And I just want to give some examples of that, some like real examples of how we acted like a nonprofit, even if we didn't think we were. And so I was thinking about this the other day, the idea of a drop-in. Like we all have drop-ins to our gym, some more than others. But back in the day, I never charged for a drop in, and no one charged me for a drop in. They'd say, oh, buy a shirt if you feel like you want to help the gym out. And so I would pay $20 for a shirt that cost them $18 to produce. And so we
And
just
take a
kind of
class,
operated this
right?
as,
And
yeah,
you then
yeah, and
take
I
a
did a
class.
class. And so and that was just kind of what we did because we loved other affiliate owners. We wanted to support them. We loved the idea that someone was actually doing CrossFit because it was so rare. And then flash, forward to 2023, if we're still giving away drop-ins or hey, buy a $20 shirt and get a drop-in, from a business perspective, that's not really going to sustain us very well. And so it's those topics of talk about like I never thought about that back in the day. And the same with other things like trainers, our trainers. A lot of times if someone wanted to be a trainer, it was like, great, awesome. You can have a free membership and I'll pay you on top of that.
That
And
was my first trade when
yeah,
I was a trainer.
yeah. And it sounds good. Like you're supporting other people, you're supporting your business, you've got this community, and there are still people doing that. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. But I'm just saying if you take away any emotional kind of response and you just look at the business aspect of it, does it really make sense to give away a lot of stuff, and valuable stuff, highly valuable things, when your business might benefit or might need to charge for those things?
Yeah.
So those are just a couple of examples of how we say, "Oh, I'm a for-profit business," but then kind of act like a nonprofit.
Yeah, I think it happens a lot. It's like you said, some of it's the old school way, some of it's what maybe we learned when we were first a member of a gym. I got a
Mhm.
1 week free trial.
Right.
When I would go visit other gyms, I got to drop in for free, or like you said, the old shirt purchase got you
Yeah.
a class for free. Um, and so we inherit these. And I've even heard affiliate owners, I've talked to them on the phones recently, and they would say things like, my business partner is just wanting to make money. And like, that's not what we're about. And I'm like, well,
Right.
wait a minute. Before we villainize that, I haven't talked to or met the person, but what, why are we so against that? That doesn't make you a bad person to also
Yes.
want your business to be successful. And by
Right.
successful, and we can define that later, but I think this idea of undervaluing exactly what it is we do. You just talked about someone just on the mental health alone, right? And
Mhm.
how you've literally saved someone's life. I mean, I've had people come up to me with tears in their eyes telling me I've saved their marriage. I didn't even
Right.
know things were going on, but I ended
Yeah.
up coaching the husband and wife, and sure enough, like they decided to disclose that personal information to me. We've many of us have encountered people who have lost 50 or more 100 pounds. That is
Mhm.
life-saving amount of weight. We don't even know some of the complications we might have saved them from, right?
Right.
Coming off of expensive medications. Like, I know what I do, a downfall of myself as a business owner and as a trainer. I undervalue myself, and I impart my financial worry on someone
Mhm.
else. And I think,
Right.
oh, I don't know that I could afford this for personal training right now, given all the expenses
Yes.
in my life. So I'm not going to charge that. Even though if I really put pen to paper and crunch the numbers, like I'm worth that, whatever number, right?
Yes.
So the underestimating of our value is, I can speak personally that I definitely
Yeah.
do.
I mean, we all do it, and I think just as humans, we can be afraid. We don't want to overcharge for things, right? We don't want to be overly confident. We want to be humble, and so I think it's human nature to undervalue ourselves in whatever we do. Um, but yeah, a funny story about that. I had a manager at one point who was full time manager, and he was having a hard time selling our memberships, and we were talking about it, and I asked him, I said, would you, because he wasn't paying for membership. He was
Right.
my manager. And so he got a salary and he didn't pay for membership. And I said, would you pay these rates for a membership? And he took a pause and he's like, I'm not sure that I would. And
Oh,
so immediately I know, of course, this person, I didn't know his financial situation and how tight it was. But if he would struggle budgeting that amount for a CrossFit membership, well, how could he, explain that confidently to someone else? And we had to work through that. Um, but that's very real, and I ask other gym owners, and this is actually a really fun thought question. If you didn't own a CrossFit gym, if you sold your CrossFit gym tomorrow and you moved across the country and you're just working a job, or you're retired or whatnot, what would you pay for a CrossFit experience that was great? Like if there was one CrossFit gym in that town and you went to it and it was a great experience. The coaching was awesome, the facility was good, it met all your expectations. How much would you pay for that? And it's just there's no right answer or wrong answer, but your answer is going to affect how you sell your service.
yeah.
And I've really thought about that. And I'm not a super wealthy person, but knowing what I know now, I honestly would pay probably up to $500 a month to feel like I feel
Mm,
and to do what I do. Just I would pay a lot. It's worth it.
yeah.
And hopefully I wouldn't have to pay that much. But if there was a CrossFit gym and it was in a higher market and it was like $300 a month or $350 a month, if I had the same income I do now, I would absolutely pay that
Yeah.
because I know what that's going to give me, and I know how better my life is going to be with that in my life. And so because of that, I have no issues. I can confidently have prices in those ranges, because I would personally, pay for it. So you mentioned personal training. Like, could you afford, we're $90 a session for an hour. That's a lot. It is. And sometimes we have doubts like, oh, I wonder if people could afford that. It's a lot of money. But then when you see what you accomplish in an hour with one person, one on one, and you're like, wow, that person is actually moving differently. You know, they're 40 years old and I've changed their movement patterns from the last 40 years and they're moving differently now in 1 hour.
Right.
Like, what's that worth? Is that worth $90? Heck yeah, it's worth a lot more than that.
Right. Yeah. The things that we end up spending our money on, right? When we really look at
Yeah.
it. I know between my kids and my husband and myself, just our Starbucks money alone would be
Right.
probably something embarrassing. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think sometimes we hear some of these numbers and it can start to feel like, okay, well, this is going to be relative to where we are all located, right? And I think
Right.
to some extent you would agree with that. But how
Right.
can we look at finding what our value is, depending upon where maybe our demographic that we're trying to serve, maybe it's location specific in terms of like, where is your actual physical building and what are the neighboring
Right.
communities? How far, what's the culture like? How far would someone come to
Right.
each your gym? And it's tough to, someone might hear you say, you'd be willing to pay 500 and they're like, no one in a 20-mile radius is going to pay
Yeah.
any even half of that to come to my gym. So where do I fit into the puzzle of,
Right.
profitability and actually shifting into this profit first kind of model?
Yeah, and I'd love to talk about that, but back to just what you just said, the profit first model. I also want to acknowledge that, and you've run into this, people own CrossFit gyms for all kinds of reasons. And I'm perfectly okay hearing someone say, look, I don't want to quit my day job. I love doing this on the side. It's fun for me. I'm not, money is secondary. And I think that's great. And not everyone has to approach it like I'm talking. But for me personally, just so you know where I come from, there's 6 of us in my family, and we live on our CrossFit membership, or we live on our CrossFit income.
Yeah.
I have some side income, but this is my primary income. And so because of that arrangement, I have to use that profit filter and do these things we're talking about. So back to your question, or comment about what area you're in and how do you know your value and how much is it? If we just assume our value is high, right? Our value, we're providing a valuable service. Then the next question is, how do I know what my market can sustain for a CrossFit gym? And it is different for every market, but I would point out, we're looking at this through our own lens. And if there's doctors and lawyers and high income earners in every market, right? There maybe is more in a big town versus a small town, but they're in every market. So those people are there.
Yeah.
Um, and some owners may say, oh, I don't want to fill my gym with just people like that. I want to have a diverse, environment in my gym, and I want everyone in my community to be able to afford to come here. And once again, I love that idea, but I think we should start all these discussions with, what do you want and what do you need from your affiliate?
Mm.
And that's a really important question, because if you start there and don't start at what can my market afford, I think you'll be better off. Because if, let's say I'm talking to a person who says, I want to support my family from my affiliate alone, and I'd like this to be our whole income, and I'd like to own my facility, and I'd like to have a retirement account, and I'd like to have all those things. I want to have those things. Then that's going to influence, what you're going to charge for it and your pricing. So what do you want out of your affiliate? I think is an important question. You operate in your garage, correct?
Right.
Yeah, and so did I when I first started. And some people might just want to maintain that. They're like, look, this is just an amazing use of my garage space, and I love doing it, and I have no aspirations of owning a facility, and maybe my spouse, makes a great income and we don't need it. That's a different situation. But like we were saying, how do you know your market? Well, I can give you examples in my area where there's about 200,000 people in my town, so pretty big town. um, a successful CrossFit gym, in my definition of success, might only need 150 members out of 200,000. So that's a pretty small slice. And I can definitely find 150 people that could afford almost any rate that I throw up, right? So small towns might be a little bit more challenging, but I still think that rings true is that if you know what you want out of your CrossFit gym, if you know how much money you need every month to stay open and thrive and be successful and be happy, then start there, right? Start with that exercise and then drill down to, well, this is what I need to charge to make that happen, right? And you may find out, oh, well, I need to charge my clients, if I assume I'm going to get 100 clients or 150 clients, I need to charge $175 a month. That will pay all my bills. That'll allow me the lifestyle I want, and it will provide me the affiliate that I want. Great. Now you know your number, and you can go out to the market and figure out how to get it.
Yeah.
So that's just the way I look at things is running any business really. If you were selling anything, right, you need to know what your costs are, what you need to make, and then price accordingly. And what if you came up with a really high number, right? That's like kind of
That
scary.
scared you?
Yeah, yeah. What if you were like, okay, I did all the math. I included a 401k. I included being able to buy a building. I included be able to pay a manager a living wage, and I included all the things on my wish list to be that I would love to have. And I came up with $250 a month is what I would need to charge. And you're like, whoa, wait a minute. I don't know if people in my town are gonna actually do that.
Yeah.
That's the next challenge, but I think you should know that number,
Yeah.
right? And then once you kind of know that number, man, there's a lot of things you can do that we can get into later to get yourself there.
Yeah.
But I truly think a lot of affiliate owners like myself, I had no idea what I needed. I was pulling numbers out of thin air
Right.
about what I needed to be
People look at
profitable.
the gym down the street, right?
Yeah,
Or yeah. And I think the mistake would be you look at the gym down the street and you either match it
right,
without any baseline as to why they chose that number. You know
right.
nothing about their lifestyle and what they're trying to get out of their affiliate, or you try to undercut it, which seems
Yeah,
kind of maybe slimy at first, but you're like, no, I'm trying to get more people,
right,
and what have you just done? You've
right.
possibly created a recipe for failure, and you're not even going to be able to be around, long enough to help all the people you want to help. So, I think, like you said, know that number, and like if it scares you, I still think you should write it down somewhere
Yeah,
and save
yeah,
it. And maybe it's not happening this month, but
right.
what are the steps you can take to get to close that gap and get closer to it? And I think something
Yeah.
you and I talked about, which was really helpful for me to think about, and I know it's not an easy one for one analogy, but just like there are so many professional services that are out there that we
Mhm.
don't even blink. We're just kind of like, well, this is what it costs. This is what we're going to have to pay for it, whether they're in the medical or in the, physical therapy, homeopathic, or even more things like kind of everyday things you might need fixed, your car, your
Yeah,
house. You call a plumber and you're like, well, I don't know how to do it. So I guess I'm
yeah,
paying this because you do and you're the
yeah,
professional. And, I understand there may be a little bit of not exactly bartering, but like, talking about negotiating, but for the most part, like you're going to pay them what otherwise
yeah,
they're not going to do the job. Like,
yeah,
so if someone needs and wants this professional service that you're offering, then don't be afraid to charge what it's worth. This isn't
right.
a place for someone to be negotiating. This is their health. And what are you saving them in the long run?
Yeah,
Medical bills, medications, um, health complications, missing out on parts of life. There's so much that you are providing by helping them with this. So remembering that, I think.
right. I think so. And you could ask yourself, like, why does a plumber charge $100 an hour, or why does a lawyer charge what they do, or other professionals that provide a service? They need to charge that, right? They've established that for the business they want to run and the lifestyle that they want, like that's necessary, right? And you
And they
you
know their
mentioned
worth.
something.
They know what
Yeah,
they've learned and
yeah,
studied. They know how long they've been in the business. Like you said, lawyer or plumber, they know that they can fix any problem. And so their rate is going to be reflected in that,
yeah.
right?
And speaking to what you said a few minutes ago, which I think is so important, and hopefully we see less of this nowadays. But I saw this like crazy in maybe 10 years ago, where as CrossFit was growing rapidly through that time, and I was the first affiliate in my area by a long shot. But then, over time, more affiliates opened up, and at one point there was probably 5 or 6 in my town, which it can completely support that, and that was fine. I love that there are other affiliates in my town, and I don't see them as competition at all because we serve such a small part of the overall community. But I did see what I call a race to the bottom, and that was very, I think, detrimental to all CrossFit affiliates. If I had picked some random number of $150 a month that I'm charging my members, which I do think that's random, and somebody picked it back in the day, and then the rest of us just followed.
I've paid that
Um,
before. Yep.
yeah, and so I don't know who picked that number, but why didn't you pick a higher one? Um, and then the next affiliate opens and they're $140 a month, and then the third affiliate opens and they say, "Oh, we're $130 a month," and then the fourth affiliate opens and goes, "Oh, and we offer this, $30 a month discount if you've got this job or that job." And then the first affiliate goes, "Man, everyone's charging less than me. Maybe I'm overpriced," and they race to the bottom. They race to the point where they can no longer even operate the service that they love. And I think that's unfortunate, and I think that has changed. So if I'm speaking to old school people, they'll kind of get that, but I think more and more as I talk to newer affiliates, I think they get the idea that that race to the bottom doesn't work for anybody. But in fact, the opposite works really well, kind of a race to the top, because if I don't mind, I guarantee I'm the most expensive CrossFit affiliate in a big area here in Oregon. And I don't mind that at all. And I'm hoping that I can raise that overall, quality of experience and profitability for the gyms in my area. I mean, maybe if they're a lot cheaper than me, maybe it will help other CrossFit affiliates raise their rates and go, "Oh, well, CrossFit Salem's this amount. Maybe I really don't know my value. Maybe I am undercharging for my service, and I can go up, and I'm not afraid of that because CrossFit Salem." So I don't mind being that affiliate who's more expensive. But yeah, like we said, knowing your value and then understanding what you need out of your business to be happy. And then later down the road, which this is a huge topic, is how do we get there?
Yeah.
Right? What are all the little things we can do to make the money to achieve all that stuff that we talked about? Tons of tactics that can be talked about.
So it's like kind of first and foremost, you've got to kind of have that little talk with yourself and pep talk, right? And
Yeah.
maybe that might need to go to your manager. You might
Yes.
need to go to, anyone that's doing sales. I would say your entire staff, really,
The whole staff. Yeah.
because they're also going to be possibly charging for services like personal training or nutrition or writing, private programs for people to do on their own, accessory work, whatever it may be. And they all need to understand that concept of the race to the bottom versus the race to the top, and that,
Yeah.
we don't undercharge for our services, and you guys are valuable, and as such we work on continuing education, and we practice, and we learn from each other, and this is all the things that we do. We maintain the physical space of our affiliate so that is welcoming and clean, and the place that everyone wants to be and stay at. And so you have to get on board, you got to
Yeah.
get your whole staff on board, and
Right.
then you need to go ahead and define success from a
Yes.
business standpoint and for you as the owner,
Yeah.
right? Because we have to create a sustainable model. And if
Mhm.
there was a one size fits all, right, then we'd kind of be a franchise. We'd be like, this is
Right.
the model. And that's not CrossFit. That's not what it's going to become. But we can still hear from each other and learn and sort of mold what we've heard from others into how can I sustain success for myself and my business.
Right.
And establishing those, then now it's all about how do we kind of put it all together and achieve it, right?
Right, exactly. And I think that is a really important point, is getting all of the people involved in your business to be on the same page and kind of be marching in the same direction. All of your trainers, because otherwise, a member is going to talk to a trainer, "Hey, why are they charging this for that? Or why is this so expensive?" And the trainer could be like, "I don't know. It seems weird to me too." And then there's a disconnect, and it doesn't work. So absolutely get your whole team on board. And a good way to frame that to your team is to say, "We want to provide the best experience we possibly can for these clients. we want to change lives, and it takes money to do that, and it takes equipment, and it takes a space, and it takes a living wage for all of us. And so that is the ultimate goal. If you can all get on the same page of helping as many people as possible, providing a great experience, and then drill back to, yeah, we have to make money to do that, and then everyone can be on the same page and kind of marching in the same direction. So it's not just about, oh, the owner wants to buy a new car, or like, the owner's getting super rich on this CrossFit gym,
But
and
isn't that a
and but
real
even if they
fear?
are, is that bad?
Isn't that a real fear for affiliate owners, that they
Yes.
think that that is maybe the misconception, that my rates
Yeah.
are so high and that means I must be hoarding it all. And if
Yeah.
I buy a car or go on vacation with my family, I'm somehow, betraying my
Yes.
role as disciple of CrossFit that is just supposed to be giving it away at,
Yeah.
these bargain prices. And it that I think a lot of us feel a little bit of that guilt. Um,
Yes.
that we're leaving it. And I think that's a big part of defining what you want out of it and being okay with that. Because
Well, you and I talked about that topic before,
yeah,
and I think that's super important. I mean, once again, I've had that discussion with my wife. When we bought, it wasn't even a new car; it was like a couple years old, and she said, "Should I drive this to the gym?" And we were nervous
yeah,
because, once again, there was this thought that, oh, I don't want to seem like I'm doing too well,
right.
because then people could question why I charge so much for CrossFit.
But
And I
when
think
you
that I think
like
we have to
doctor
address
drive
that.
up in a Porsche, do you go like, I paid for that Porsche? Your surgeon
Yeah.
or whatever, you're just like, well, yeah, they
Yeah.
get paid a lot of money. They do good work. I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
why is there this disconnect? It's kind of funny.
Yeah, if someone drives in a nice car and they can afford CrossFit and nice stuff, I mean, I'm going to give them a high five and say, "Good for you. You've worked hard probably for what you have." And we have to kind of hope everyone would do that for us as well. If we create a thriving business that helps lots of people, and because of that, we're able to, have a nice house and a nice car, like hopefully people that understand all this would give you a high five and say, "Good job. You're doing great." And once I realized that that's how it should be, I did change my outlook a little bit. Um, and I've yet to see a CrossFit owner that's, driving in a Lamborghini. So I don't know that we have to worry about that.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to become obnoxious.
Right.
What do you say to the owner who feels overwhelmed by all of this right now? They are doing all the jobs. They
Yeah.
are overwhelmed by most of the jobs. Maybe the one thing they like to do the most, they actually don't even get to do anymore, or
Yeah.
they're so stressed and buried that even when they are doing that, whatever job that may be, it
Yeah.
doesn't have the same fun because they can't put themselves really into it. How do you
Right.
get past that? Where does that fit into the puzzle?
I I think that's a super important topic also, because why you started CrossFit and why you first started your affiliate, over time it might become something different. They always say if you love something, don't turn it into a job, because then you won't love it anymore. But I think you can have that. But as we talked about before, there could be some time in between where you do have to wear all the hats and clean the bathrooms and do things you don't love. Um, and that's okay, but there should be a plan and an end destination where you can scale back to doing just the things you love. And it is overwhelming, to kind of do everything and wear all the hats like we mentioned. And you just kind of have to go through that usually initially. But I would say to that owner, have some patience, and put the right things in place that we're going to talk about. And then over time, you could probably hand off some of those tasks that you don't actually love. And if you have that profit mindset, you'll be able to hand off the cleaning to a cleaning crew. You might be able to hand off, some of the other things that you don't love, and just scale back to the part of CrossFit that you're super passionate about. And I have done that. So I can speak from a place of experience that, I do like coaching CrossFit classes, but I like it in small quantities. I don't want to coach 3 or 4 classes a day. That consumes a lot of the energy for me that I love to put into the business side of owning a gym. So right now I teach maybe 2 to 4 classes a week, and I always want to stay connected and coach classes, and I think that's important. But I do it at a very low amount, and that's what I want to do. That's how I want to run my gym. Maybe you love coaching and you want to coach all the classes and do none of the business stuff. You can do that. You can absolutely make that happen. that just means you need to hire somebody to do the other business stuff. And so, yeah, it just takes time for your business to get to a place where you can focus on what you love and trim it down to that. I'm not sure it's sustainable for one person to do everything. I mean, even if you had business partners, it is very overwhelming to realize, oh, I've got to do marketing and advertising and run a business and keep a facility clean, and now I've got this team of trainers and I need to manage them. That's a lot for any one person to do with a high level of enjoyment, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's when over time we start to see one or more of those areas slips, you know?
Yep.
The Instagram page is never updated anymore, or the cleaning is kind of not what it could be.
Yeah.
It's a dirtier gym, right? And they're kind of like, ah, well, it's a CrossFit box. It can be a little rough, or you know, there aren't any updates. There's
Yeah.
old equipment or things that are staying broken. Or even just the classes themselves are starting to get a little bit lackluster because there's burnout happening on
Yeah.
behalf of the owner who's maybe coaching all the classes, or the singular coach that has the burden.
Yeah.
So that happens. We see that
Yeah.
happen. So maybe I don't know if it's a good time now to kind of transition to some of
Sure.
the tactics that could lead you to
Yeah.
offloading even just one of those things.
Right.
Because by having more, correct me if I'm wrong, it comes right back down to, if you're able to make more money, that's going
Yeah.
to allow you, it's going to afford you this flexibility to
Right.
do, well, wear less hats, right? To offload something to someone else, make that job someone else's job. And now
Yes.
that frees you up to
Right.
invest that time you now have and back into the business. So I think that's where hopefully we can get people a little excited about
Yeah.
what they can do. So, like, what would you say would be the first step to getting there?
Right. I mean, the first step for me would be to define the task that you dislike the most, or like, what is that, what, like you said, one thing at a time. What is the one thing that I'd really not like to be doing every week? And maybe it's just not being done well. It's not that you hate it, but like you said, okay, you realize there's this hole in your business where something isn't happening that should be happening, and you need that to be done, and you just can't do it, won't don't want to do it, or can't do it. So yeah, I would define it, pick one thing, and then my first step would be, if I assume maybe I don't have the money to just hire somebody to do it. Well, there's other ways to accomplish getting that task covered. You can do some sort of trade. We're all familiar with that, where we trade services with somebody, and it's trickier that way than just paying someone, but it's entirely possible. So,
Mhm.
for example, my wife will tell you I'm not a big fan of cleaning. I just, it's not that I'm unclean. I just don't really enjoy cleaning, and I would prefer not to do it. But a CrossFit affiliate, in my opinion, needs to stay really clean. So one of the things we did very early on was I started developing a cleaning crew. And I also knew that it was too big of a task for me to ask any one person to do it. And I couldn't afford to pay for a company to come in and do it. I got quotes for that, but it was a lot of money every month. And I started to realize, man, if I just had a few members that would help me with the cleaning and I trade their membership for it, that'd work out pretty good. But the first thought was, well, if they stop paying me, then I am actually paying for it because I've lost that revenue. So that doesn't work as well. So how I've done that over the years is I've made it something, when there's a hardship, when a member comes to me and says, financially, I just can't continue with CrossFit. I love it. I want to be here. And I know that person. If that's a great member of my gym and I really want them to be here, I'm going to give them that option. Like, hey, have you thought about doing a trade? You've been reliable, you've been great. Would you consider just doing some work around the gym in trade for your membership? Now that works out awesome because you were going to lose that money anyway. And
Right.
so why not, have a win-win for both people? That concept could be applied to almost any task as long as it's in their wheelhouse. I wouldn't ask somebody to do something they don't want to do, or they're not good at. So this is going to sound a little crazy, but I bet we're at about 20 people doing that right now at my
Really
gym. Yeah,
fun
20 people.
beyond just
Yep.
cleaning.
Yep. For every different task you can imagine, I'll give you some examples. Probably 8 to 10 people on the cleaning crew, including a manager of the cleaning crew. because I also realized not only do I not want to clean, I don't want to manage the
You don't want
cleaning.
to delegate and tell
Nope.
people what to
I don't
clean.
want to go buy, I don't want to go buy more toilet paper. I don't want to, restock the bathrooms. So I have a person who manages the cleaning crew and then people on the cleaning crew. And we have two cleaning crews, like a midweek cleaning crew and a weekend cleaning crew. We have 9,000 square foot facility. So there's a lot of cleaning to do. Um, and that's entirely maintained by the members. And what's also cool about that is
Those
they
are all
take,
members that were gonna leave.
yes,
Wow.
yeah, and maybe not all of them were gonna leave, but
They would have to
there
call
was,
or
yeah, a vast majority of them for financial reasons needed to do that. Now, I feel like it's super important to share this. I learned the hard way that you never make it free. At least that's my experience.
yeah.
When something is free and they're not paying anything for it, it's just psychologically devalued
Yeah.
and not respected.
And
So
I've heard that that ends up actually cycling back, and sometimes what
yeah,
they traded to do is kind of being done like not well. And
yes,
and you have
yeah,
nothing to hold over them because
right,
you're not paying them and they're not, and it's this
yeah,
really awkward like, well, I'm not
yeah.
really coming to class that much anyway.
Right. So, I
Yeah.
mean, for one, we have a contract that they sign. It's very formal. It really needs to be. It can't be a handshake agreement, in my opinion. Make that an official contract with all the expectations so that everyone takes it seriously. And we charge $25 a month, which obviously is very cheap for a CrossFit membership. But at $25 a month, now that's kind of covered maybe the little bit of insurance I need for that person and my Wodify fees that I need for that person. So every member of our gym, there's some base level of money that we're going to pay every month just to have that person in the door. And that's how I explain it. I say, look, every member in this gym, there's a little bit of a cost associated. So at just $25 a month, you covered all those costs. And then they see a monthly transaction every month. There's money coming out of their account. And then I found that people take that trade more seriously when you do it that way. So, but other things that those people do. So there's the cleaning crew, restocking of inventory. I'm just bad at that. I'm just bad at, walking by the cooler and realizing we're low on Kill Cliff. Someone should have ordered it 3 weeks ago, and that someone was me, and I didn't. And then people are like, "Hey, man, why don't we have Kill Cliff? I'm super thirsty." So,
And you
so
could have been selling more Kill Cliff also.
yeah, and it could have been selling more cool, and I want one, and it's not
Right.
there. So I realized like, hey, I mean, I had a gal at my gym that was a merchandiser, right? Like that's what she did, and I was like, you're already going to stores all the time and merchandising. You can see our cooler and what we're low on, and if you're at a store, just grab some, throw it in the cooler, and give me the receipt, and I'll reimburse you. So we worked out a deal, and so if I'm speaking to a person that's wearing all the hats and they're looking to offload some of those hats they don't love, talk to your members, find out what they do. You should. I know what the most of our members do for a living, and if something they do line up with something you need, and then also if if they would benefit from a low cost membership, it could be a perfect situation. It sounds
It's a great
complicated,
way
but
for people to kind of bridge that gap when I think a lot of people are worried about losing members when they go to this higher rate.
yes,
And
yeah,
if they feel like they're kind of shifting the demographic of the gym to this higher income,
yes,
and but then I don't get to help this whole sector,
right,
of my community. That can be a way
right,
to maybe bridge that gap where there is a
yes,
membership fee that matches what they're able to do, along with
right,
some sort of
yeah.
investment back in the gym that they love and want to be a
Mhm.
part of. And
And yeah, not to interrupt, but I just don't, what you nailed there was or what you hit on was something super important, because I heard this topic come up at our recent affiliate gathering. Like, there is a desire for people to be able to provide CrossFit to every segment of the community, right? People that maybe can't afford our rates. And I love the idea of saying, we want to do that. And if you can afford less, maybe you can trade and do some work at the gym. I mean, in my mind, that's a sustainable model versus just, what does it say to your member who's paying full rate and maybe they're barely scraping by, but they're paying your full rate, and then someone new walks in the door and you're like, okay, you can't afford the full rate, so you can pay less. That that's not fair to all your current members, which you should think about as well. So I love that idea of a service trade and helping people that maybe otherwise wouldn't even have a CrossFit membership, but now they can because they can do a little work at the gym. So I'd say that's a good place to start that any affiliate owner could do, and it doesn't even require you to hire somebody to wear those hats.
Yeah, definitely.
And
Um,
then to add to that, there are some jobs where it's going to be more difficult to just do a trade. Like I have an accountant, someone who does the books, right? I don't know that I really want to do a trade for that.
yeah.
So I hire somebody to do that. But as it turns out, I that person can do a lot more than just books. So that is now that role evolved into my assistant, who actually does all kinds of things at the gym, and I pay that person as an employee. But they do the books, and they teach classes, and they do personal training, and they do admin stuff and all kinds of stuff, right? It's kind of a jack of all trades. And I would tell the gym owner, when you come across somebody and you realize that, man, this person has a wide path of experience, they can do all these different things, you might want to consider trying to hire that person, because that's what we need in a CrossFit gym. We need a person that can do all kinds of things. They're not just a good coach, but hey, they can do these other things as well. That's a great hire for a CrossFit gym.
Definitely. What about, okay, it's time to like figure out what my community can pay for my affiliate. Like, how do I figure out what I could add? Well, maybe do you find like a top end and a bottom end, and then you find
Yes.
what works best for that number that you wrote down for what you
Yeah.
want to get out of your business? Like, how do you go about this?
Well, let's just throw out numbers so we have some. Let's say a person did all the math and they say, look, I need to average $200 per member per month in order to reach the level of success that I need, or provide the affiliate I need. So let's say that number is 200. That doesn't mean your rates need to be 200. That just means that on average you need to get 200 per person. So you might set your rates below that, but then offer some high-end services to bring the average up.
Mm.
And I think that is important to have a range. So right now, our range, it's a huge range. This is going to sound a little crazy, but I think the on the low end would be, people that maybe just bought a punch card, right? And they came in and they maybe only want to work out once or twice a week, and so they bought a punch card. Those punch cards average probably about $15 a class, anywhere $12 to $15 a class. So maybe they only paid me $60 that month, right? That'd be kind of the low end,
Yeah.
which that met their needs of just working out occasionally, and that's kind of low end. I have people over $1,000 a month as well for a single person. So I
Wow.
mean that is a massive range,
Yeah.
massive.
And is that mostly
But
like nutrition, personal training, like plus
yeah,
membership?
yeah, adding in a lot of extras, right? But the important thing is there is a range. If I go into a CrossFit gym and I say, "What's your range?" and they say, "We don't have a range. These are our rates."
Yeah.
It's like, well, you're not meeting the needs of the people that walk in the door. That's the real answer. Um, Ask your members as they walk in the door, what are you looking for? What do you need?
Yeah.
And then meet that need. And you're probably going to find some high ticket high ticket folks in there that want the personal training to reach their goals. They want the nutritional counseling. They want to work one on one. They want the accountability. You keep layering in those services, and the price does go up quite a bit, but you're giving them what they want. They're giving them what they came in for. And if they can afford it and that's what they want, why wouldn't you sell it to them, right? It's just a no brainer. So I asked a friend of mine who owns a CrossFit gym a kind of an important question. I said, "How much personal training do you do?" He's like, "Well, really none. We have pretty much none, no personal training." I was like, "Okay, that's a little odd because we actually do a lot of personal training. I've already done 2 sessions this morning myself." So I said, "Well, when someone walks in the door, show me your personal training rates, and do you talk about it?" He's like, "Oh, yeah, I guess we don't really talk about it, and we don't offer it." So it's kind of a no brainer that you don't do any personal training because you don't offer it.
Yeah.
When someone walks in the door, if the first question is, what are your goals? What do you want to accomplish? And then it's my job to figure out how to get them there.
Yeah.
And I had a gal walk in yesterday who's 79 years old, and she has goals and things she wants to accomplish. But I know, and all affiliate owners know, like this lady, she's doing great, but she's not right to just jump into class,
Yeah.
right? It really, I don't think would have been the best path for her forward, to just jump into CrossFit class. And I told her that. I said, I think this would be the best plan for you. I think we'll do a series of personal training. We'll introduce you to CrossFit one-on-one. You'll learn the methodology. You'll learn where everything's at in the gym. You'll get comfortable with what we do. You'll learn. And she had a lot of limitations, right? Old injuries and things. So sure enough, she's like, well, that sounds great. Let's do it. Okay, awesome. So that's going to be this amount of money, which obviously is pretty expensive. She signed up, no problem. We're going forward. I'm confident that this lady is going to get the best first experience to CrossFit that she could possibly get. And it's going to be sustainable. It's going to be appropriate for her limitations, right? It also could be $500 to $700 a month, of revenue for us. So we've met our needs, we've met her needs. And had I not offered that, had I just said, CrossFit is infinitely scalable.
Yeah.
What's the Greg Glassman quote, right? It meets the needs of Olympic athletes and your grandparents. I don't disagree with that at all. I'm just saying maybe the start or the on ramp looks a little different for those people.
Well, and he said that from the place of training all ranges, but he was doing a lot of personal training and small group model and not the 20-person class model,
Right.
really. So I think you're right on, and a lot of us can spot those people from just by how they're interacting and maybe their apprehension about the gym, and others of them come forward and actually ask, can I do any one-on-one
Yeah.
training? So you better be prepared with an answer for that. You better
Yes.
and like you said, you want to be the place that says yes more than you say no. I get it. You're not when they say, "Oh, can I take my spin class?" and you don't offer that, that's okay. You don't have to create it out of
Yeah.
thin air, like, "Oh, if we get all the assault bikes together," like, no, we don't offer spin class at this location. That's okay. But
Yeah.
if there are things that fall within, if you say no, we don't offer nutrition, no, we don't offer one-on-one training, all we offer is this large group
Yeah.
model, then you are turning away business. And
Right.
that could be money for your business, that could be income for your trainers, all sorts of different things. So
Yeah.
be sure to be prepared for all the things you're willing to offer.
So
Um,
I think to give an actionable step here, I would say for an affiliate owner to look at their rates and ask yourself, am I going to meet all the needs of the community that could walk in the door from the high end to the middle to the low end? Could I meet all those needs with this rate structure?
right.
And how do I adjust it? How do I have a program for somebody who comes in and really needs a lot of one-on-one attention? Like, how do I handle that? And since we have already established that I know my value, I know what an hour of my time is worth, then that gives me a target on how to price that. But yeah, I first played around with this maybe 3 or 4 years ago, where I got challenged to create by a business mentor that I had. I got challenged to create a package that was the best it could possibly be. The challenge was, how could you create the best CrossFit experience ever, right? And I was thinking about that, and I was like, okay, well, it definitely would involve nutrition. It would involve accountability. It would involve probably some group classes, but also some one-on-one, so that I could help somebody really target their problem areas. Someone walks in and yeah, they're fine to start group classes, but they've got an old rotator cuff injury and they can't do a snatch. Okay, well, maybe we work on that on the side, one-on-one, right? We work on that. So that was the challenge. How do I create the best program ever? And then how do I price it? Well, when I got to that point, I really realized, like, wow, this is going to be expensive. If I make the perfect program, it's going to be really expensive. And that's okay. And so a funny story is, the first time I offered it, someone signed up, and
Oh,
I didn't even have it. I didn't even know what I was going to do yet. I had sold like this $2,000 training package that I hadn't even really done before. And so then I was scrambling to figure out, how do I fulfill this promise that I made? And it turned out great. I was able to put together that package and give the client what they wanted. But it was just the idea that, somebody actually bought that and somebody wanted that. And I think it's good for every affiliate owner to take a look at what they offer.
Definitely. How would you feel like if there was someone realizing that it's time to increase the rates that they're raising, but they don't know where to start?
Sure. Yeah, and I'll be honest with you right now that I may not be the best at this question, but I can share how I've done it in the past. And I if I was starting an affiliate today, I would do it differently than I have done it in the past. So let's just put that on the table. If anybody's like brand new affiliate or wanting to start one, um, how I would do it in that case is exactly like every other business in the world, right? Netflix, or who is it? Somebody, I think it was Netflix, just sent me an email that says, "Oh, your rate's going up by 10%." And of course I didn't question it, and the rate went up, and it's fine. So if I was starting an affiliate today, in the contract would be a yearly increase, and everybody at my affiliate, no matter what job they had or when they started, would be at the current rate, and it would just go up every year automatically, and you've completely removed that obstacle from yourself in the future.
Yeah.
A lot of us that started years ago have that obstacle of like, how do we raise rates in a way that doesn't harm our business or hurt feelings, which is the tricky one. um, Here's how I've done it, for right or for wrong. I don't like to grandfather people in, because, and there's a lot of reasons why I think CrossFit should not do that. For one, our service, if you're doing all these other things, gets better year over year. I know mine has. My
Yeah.
service has gotten better year over year.
Well, I
So
mean,
why should?
coaches should get better year over year. I'm
Yeah.
certainly better than I was when I started
Yep.
coaching in 2010. I hope
Yeah.
so, right? So why
So why
wouldn't I
shouldn't
be
the
worth
rates
more
go up as
now
well?
than I was then?
Yeah. And also, I mean, we've all experienced what inflation looks like really hard over the last couple of years, and everything we buy and our rent and all of our costs have gone up significantly. And if we don't pass some of those on to the clients, if we've grandfathered them in at 2008 rates,
Yeah.
our business is going to be suffering.
Yeah.
So I don't like grandfathering at all. So I a couple of years ago I tried to figure out what's the happy medium. How do I honor those people that have been with me forever, and at the same time not sacrifice my business? So what I came up with is kind of a tiered approach. So right now we have 4 tiers, and starting January 1st, we're going to go to our 5th tier. So what that is I just created a range of years. So I started in 2008. So anybody that's still with me, and yes, there are quite a few members that are still with me from my garage and from those early years, what I've done is I've said, this is your base rate. You're a tier one, member, and it may go up over time, but you're never going to reach the current rates.
Right.
When I opened my when I rolled up the first garage door to my affiliate, I was $135 a month in 2008, which is a little crazy because I know gyms are literally at that rate today. So that's what it was. 135, and I still have people paying me 135, but it's a very small amount, right? It's not a lot of people, and so I can absorb that pretty well. But when a rate increase needs to happen, let's say it's 5%. Well, they're going to go 5% up from 135 because they're a tier one person. Well, then in like 2012, I raised my rates. That's tier two. 2015, 16, I raised my rates again. That's tier three. I think it was 2019, I raised my rates to tier four. And now in at the start of 2024, I'm going to go to tier five. So all of those rates are kind of set, and they all go up over time by a percentage that matches sort of inflation. And so in that way, we've honored the people that have been with us forever,
Right.
but we've also supported our businesses with increases over time. And
That's
then through attrition, I mean, through just natural attrition, those people that have been here forever will fall off, and new people will come on. And honestly, that model, that's worked great for us. It really has.
And so that's sort of like that's your unlimited probably
Yes.
most of your members, is that like the
Yeah.
majority members? But then, like you
Yeah.
said, you still have those higher tier
Yeah.
packages. And then, as you kind of already illustrated, there are some people that have had to have that tough conversation with you that they're going to have to quit their membership, and you found a workaround around that. You didn't change your rates for them.
Nope.
You found
Nope.
some sort of a trade, a buy-in for them along with that. I want to, before we kind of wrap up, because I know, and hey, I'd love to always have you on more. I think I might get some questions about some of the things we talked about, and we could dive in deeper. But
Sure.
something that really that I loved hearing from you was talking about, you know, beyond the coaching, beyond the class experience, which I know how to make awesome as a coach. How do I make my gym
Right.
worth this much? Like you kind of you described it a little bit at the beginning, like you just walk in and it's
Yes.
this place that you just know you would pay $500 a month
Yes.
for. And
I would know
I'm
immediately
sorry,
if
but
I
like
went.
looks matter, right? Like there are some gyms that could have, you give me the most phenomenal coach there ever was, right? You give me one of the originals, and they're the most experienced, and their personality just makes you want to, but you're in this dingy place, like
Yeah.
you're still going to have a price cap that's a little bit lower than that because
Yeah. You could be a level 18 CrossFit coach, and nobody knows it walking in the door, probably. Right. So it comes back to the idea of just relate your business to every other business you walk into. And I think I use this analogy. If you walk into a restaurant and there's a maitre d' and they're dressed nicely and there's white tablecloths and candlelight and it smells good and good music, and like you don't even have to look at the menu, you know that's going to be expensive, and you just know it, and you know the food's probably going to be good. And then we look at CrossFit gyms back in the day that probably offered an amazing training experience and were changing lives, but people that didn't know that walked in the door and they saw kind of a dirty small warehouse with dogs and kids running around. And so there was a disconnect between my first impression and the sticker shock looking at the rates. So in 2019, I made a big push. I mean, I always kind of knew that, but it was kind of back burner, right? I was wearing so many hats that I never even got to put on that hat because it was back burner. But then in 2019, when COVID hit and shut us down, I had some time and I really looked at my gym and I was like, we could do better. Like, I want someone to walk in the door, look at this CrossFit gym and think, man, this is probably expensive. Like I want them to think that,
yep.
right? And if I get that impression really high, but then my rates come in lower, well, that's going to be a great experience. And we actually have that now. I have people that when I tell them our rates, they think it's actually was going to be more
Nice.
based on that first impression of walking into the lobby. So how do you do that? First step is just be objective. Walk into your CrossFit gym and look at it through the lens of someone who's never been there, right? Is it well put together? Is it clean? Is it well branded? Is everything in its place, or is there kind of clutter? And is it inviting? Is it welcoming? One of my pet peeves, and I understand why we all had to do this, but I shouldn't say pet peeve. One of the things I've noticed is if you walk into a CrossFit gym, there's no lobby at all. You just walk right into training space, and some guy with his shirt off is dropping a barbell, right? And you're like, whoa, that's a little shocking. I don't think that's the best first impression.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's CrossFit, and that's what we do. But when you walk into our gym, there is a lobby, and there's actually doors, and it's closed off from the training space because I don't want it to be too loud. I
Yeah.
want to be able to talk to that person. I don't want to have to yell at them. Everything is on brand. And what I mean by that is we have 4 colors. And when we buy something or bring it into the gym, now we make sure that it matches what's supposed to be in my gym. Is it on brand? Does it match the colors, the materials, and the feel of the environment? And if it doesn't, it shouldn't be in here. And that goes from every furnishing, every paint color, everything, and just walk into another business, any other business that has done this well. I mean, walk into any franchise and you're going to see exactly what I'm talking about. And just, that makes sense. So I like having an inviting lobby that's not loud, where I can talk to a prospective new member, and they're going to be way more nervous. Like I said, if there's the shirtless guy dropping the barbell 5 feet away from him, now they're really nervous. They're already nervous. And
Yeah.
now you've made them second guess even signing up at your gym. And so I kind of feel like I don't want to diminish what we do because I love what we do and I could be that shirtless guy dropping the
You're not
barbell.
trying to
I just
hide it.
don't,
You're
yeah,
just
I don't want it to be in your face super hard right when you walk in the door. And I'd like kind of a softer approach. So I think anyone can look at their aesthetic and ask themselves, does this look like a world-class business? Right? If I go into my town, here's a good exercise. Go to a BMW dealership, go to a Mercedes dealership, go to an Audi dealership. Just walk in there.
yeah.
You don't have to buy a car, just walk in there and look around. And then go to the Kia dealership, which is also still pretty nice, but you will see a difference.
Yeah,
You
I
will
mean,
see a difference.
go to the highest end salon and then go to the
Yeah.
super cuts, you know, like
Yeah.
you're gonna
Go to
see,
Great Clips. Yeah.
yeah, and you're gonna know why it's a $300 cut and then
Yes.
it's a $15 cut. And I mean,
Yep.
you can do this at so many different businesses. I mean, you know, where there's, you go to a mechanic and then you go to a mechanic that actually has a lobby waiting area that you don't feel like you're getting like dirt. I mean, like you're like, wow, it's air
Yep.
conditioned. There's
Yes.
refreshments. There's like, I mean, one of my best experiences that I learned this was when I was living in Los Angeles and I found this dry cleaners that was the most amazing customer service,
Yeah.
cleanliness, waiting area, snacks, refreshments. They had 12 different people there waiting to help you. And I was like, it was a dry cleaner. And I was like, I will pay anything to
Yes.
get my clothes cleaned here because,
Yes.
and they were open 24 hours a day, which obviously we
Yeah.
can't all do for CrossFit gyms. But when you do things like this, you immediately the patron immediately is willing to pay more because they love
Right.
that experience. I
Well,
legit
it's just a
enjoyed going
myth.
to the dry cleaners. Like,
Yeah, and in my opinion, we always most CrossFit gyms already offer a great service. We just need to match the aesthetic to that service. There
yeah,
just needs to be they just need to be matched,
yeah.
right? Um,
And you
and
maybe need
that's
some outside help to give you that eye, right?
yeah,
If you know that's not your
yeah.
thing, right?
It
Did you pick
definitely
up,
yeah,
was
it
that
wasn't my
you?
thing.
Was that not your
It
thing?
wasn't my thing. Yeah, I wear the same gray and black shirt because I can't match colors, and so yeah, it's not my thing. But we had a graphic designer at our gym, and I knew that's what she did, and so we reached out and said, "Hey, I don't even know where to start, but we want a new logo. We want things to match. Could you define like a color palette and then a logo that matches it?" And she came up with it. It was for us. It's like an orange, a navy blue, and a light gray. Right? She came up with this color palette, and there's a lot of strategy to that I'm not an expert on, but it looked good, and so we ran with it. And then we went into the gym. I have to give credit to my wife because she's way better at this stuff than I am. Because I was just going off those colors, but she's like, "Wait a minute, you got to think about materials too. You can't have steel and wood and concrete and all these things. Like it doesn't make sense. So come up with your plan, and maybe you get a little board that has like materials and colors on it, like a designer would have,
Yep.
and say, these are the materials and this is the aesthetic of our gym, and it can be anything you want. You
Yeah.
could have an industrial approach, you could have a spa approach. I mean, it can be anything you want, but at least you have a plan.
Yeah.
And then every time you're left making a decision about how do we have this little nook and we're going to do something to it, you go back to that board and say, is it on brand? And I think that goes a long way. But like you said, with the other services, we brought in free coffee and it's just sitting in the lobby. And I think it's been a huge win.
Yeah.
It's just a Keurig. I mean, it's literally nothing fancy, but hey, everybody loves that, right? You get out of the 5 a.m. workout, you get some coffee and you go. And it's like, I started asking myself, how could I make this experience the best it can possibly be? What do I want? If I go to get new tires on my car, they got popcorn and coffee. I skip the popcorn, but I'm hitting that coffee. And I like that. So yeah, I think to those people that are wanting to take their affiliate to the next level and have high ticket items is just make sure the great service that you offer matches the first impression when people walk in the door.
I think that's great. This has been hugely helpful for me to kind of think of it in these different places. It's all about first establishing and being comfortable with the fact that you are worth more than you're charging. And
Yes.
that once you've kind of had that little, moment and kind of understand that, now it's about getting to where you want to be. And you got to,
Mhm.
like you said, look at it through the eyes, through the lens of someone that is coming in for their first impression. And you can look at your classes that way as well, like have someone review your own coaching and your classes, review your coaches as they're coaching, and make sure that that is up to par as well with what you want to be charging, and then making sure that you're offering things that match that higher tier. It can be intimidating to start to look at raising your rates or adjusting your prices, or what do I do with the people that have been here the longest? What do I do with the new people coming in? Don't let that stop you and keep you frozen in a place that you don't want to be,
Right.
struggling financially, wearing all the hats, not having time for yourself or with your family or whatever. You're in this cycle and you can't get out of it. And it sounds like the first step is step out of that and take a
Right.
look at your business, and where can you start to make some of those changes.
Absolutely. And with all these topics, you can, if anybody wants to reach out to me or reach out to you and you can reach out to me, I'm more than happy to share tactics, and drill down into the little details that we didn't have time to get into today. But I think you're right. It's just it's creating what you love and what you want. And you define that and then march towards it. So yeah,
Well, thank you so much. I'd be happy to
no
have you
problem.
on again. We can, like you said, we can dig in even more to some of the nitty gritty details, but thank you so much, Andy.
No problem. Yeah, thanks. I love giving back to the community, so it was a fun experience, and hope to do it again.
Awesome.